Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're going to be talking about the spell Planar Binding. All right, not a fan, Sam.
I struggle with the planar ally and binding spells in that I think they are neat conceptually. I think they would be really fun as little adventures that players go on that are in the Dungeon Master's Guide as like adventures. Like you go do the thing to summon the pixie or to summon the satyr or to summon the devil or whatever. As a spell, they're expensive. They can lead to a lot of frustrations. They have some weird little hiccups that come up whenever you're casting them. They're supposed to be done as like a way to kind of like seek out and get extra planar aid, but them not coming from Dungeon Master means you're putting a lot of like, oh, we want to go infiltrate this castle. Let's go get a fairy from the Feywild, a thing that we've never touched before and hasn't been brought up before, and get it in to help us do that thing. The other Conjurers Magic and Conjurers Magic, generally speaking, has that same sort of problem. I find Planar Binding escalates it by making it like you have to kind of rebind its will to yours, and your DM is like going to have to create kind of an adversarial relationship. It's a whole hot mess. I'm not a big fan personally.
Well, I'm gonna ask you after this about how what is the difference between these planar spells and the regular conjuration magic. But before we do that, let's get in. What exactly does Planar Binding do?
Okay, for an hour and 1,000 gold, you can spend a 5th level spell slot to attempt to bind a celestial elemental, fey, or fiend to your surface, which are the ones you would normally pick anyway. It has to be within range for the entire casting of the spell, and it is only a 60-foot range. So what that typically means is Planar Binding involves first summoning a creature inside of a magic circle, like the spell even tells you that. And then after you complete it, after you complete the Planar Binding spell, not the magic circle, whatever, after you complete the Planar Binding spell, which again takes an hour, and you have to keep it within 60 feet of you for the entire hour, it makes a charisma saving throw. And if it fails the save, it's bound to you for the duration. If it passed the save, it doesn't give a shit that you just spent 1,000 gold. It doesn't care that you just spent an hour casting this. It's just GTFOs. Or it stays in the magic circle, depending on the circumstances. Notably, it also says if the creature was summoned or created by another spell, this spell extends the duration to 24 hours because that's the duration of Planar Binding. And then it just basically gives you that as a summonable creature. Like you just have that under your control that can run around. You can command it to do things. You can give it a location, guard things. It obeys you to the letter of the instruction. But it says if the creature's hostile to you, it's going to like strive to get its own objectives done. So it has a lot of the twisting your words to do like a way to screw you over kind of nature to it. And then if it follows your instructions completely before the spell ends, it comes back to you to tells you that it did the thing that you asked it to do. And then if you are on a different plane of existence, it returns to you to the place where you bound it and remains there until the spell ends. So basically, like, you know where it'll be.
All right, this sounds like a big pain in the butt. This is comparable in level to other conjuration magic. Because I'm trying to figure out why I'd use this one in place of a different one, but I guess it's the duration.
Yeah, the 24-hour no concentration duration is the reason you'd want to use it. So it's like you want an earth elemental all day, which I mean, yeah, you do want an earth elemental all day. You can conceivably Planar Binding a conjured elemental for it, which is 2 spell slots and an hour and a half. But like if you're doing it right before a long rest, then you'll have this for like 14 hours after the long rest, 16 hours after the long, or like 12, whatever the numbers are. You'll have it for a decent chunk of time after a long rest to run around with and just do whatever you want with, which is powerful. It can be good. I don't think it's worth, I mean, if you're at the tables that are playing particularly powerfully, it's probably good. But again, it also does cost 1,000 gold to do it when the spell consumes that gold cost. So you have to really be like, all right, we're going to the villain's lair. I want an earth elemental to go into the villain's lair with us. And that's where you spend 1,000 gold and you go on the one big adventure with it and you crash through walls with an earth elemental, Kool-Aid Man style. And you can do that for the entire duration of the spell. Outside of that, there are things with upcasting it where if you use the duration increases based off of what you use. So 6th level slot gives you 10 days, 30 for a 7, 180 for an 8th, and 9th level spell slots a year. And a day, which is a year and a day for some reason. I don't know why it's added the day on there, but sure. Basically, like if you ever cast this with a 9th level spell, this is just a way to slowly accumulate a series of servants that will do your bidding forever. This is a great like tool to say as a DM. Our villains have planarly bound like I don't know, 400 devils or whatever.
Mhm.
They've all been given the command to wait in the basement until you get further instructions, and they're all just waiting down there scheming to kill the evildoer upstairs, and then he lets them out and they kill a whole bunch of people and whatever. It's like a way that you can have an easy plot narrative for it. I find that it is ghoulish overkill in complexity. I think that the cost is going to make it immediately like, why would I do that whenever I only need the Earth Elemental for an hour probably. So I'll just have it for the hour. That sounds fine to me for a lower level slot. Like I don't foresee there being that many practical applications for this outside of very specifically power gaming to get as many planarly bound allies as you can, sticking them all together with your 6,000 gold or whatever for one big dungeon blast kind of event.
Yeah, you're kind of warming me up to it there. That sounds like kind of fun.
I will say I don't know how many of those events are going to be long enough to justify this cast, because if you consider it, like if you're using a 5th level or lower summoning magic and you don't have the ability to long rest in between the two, that's where you could just be like, well, I'll just cast the conjuration spell twice. You also have to wonder is like, as a DM, this spell then asks you a very powerful question, which is, can I let them long rest after casting it? Because it's supposed to cost a 5th level slot, and it doesn't if they're allowed a long rest and then have the planar bound ally for the, the remaining 16 hours after the fact, right? Being able to cast, use your 7th, 5th, 6th, 5th, 4th level, or 7th, 6th, and 5th level slots, all to planarly bind 3 new allies, then long rest, have all those back, and have all of those extra summonable creatures. That's a lot, and it would definitely be the kind of event where if this is the first time it's happening to the party, you're going to start to see like, oh shit, 3 extra bags of 120 plus hit points do just kind of ruin every encounter I had planned.
Mm-hmm.
Getting 3 ridiculously high powered caster-esque summons like pixies can offer, like all of the celestial or the Fae tend to offer, is crazy good. If you're able to like actually catch a fiend or whatever, the spell is super nifty, and that like, oh yeah, put it in a magic circle, we'll bind it to our service for 24 hours, we'll use it to get the villain, it'll be super cool. That doesn't happen. No one in D&D realistically is taking the time to prep that, which means the only real use case for it I see 99% of the time when it's getting played is at the tables where you're like, great, I'm going to munchkin the shit out of this. I'm going to have the 5 Earth Elementals with us. We're going to be ready to go. DM's going to have to let us long rest before this anyway. So I just go, great, before we long rest, give me 3 hours, and then you'll have them for however long you need them.
Yeah. The other problem with it is that, from a player's perspective, or at least, or I guess from players and DMs both perspective, at least in games that I've played, and I'm thinking about upcasting it, for extended durations, building an army. I can be in a campaign for like real months, like 6 months or something, but only like 5 days of past in game time. So it's the fantasy's neat, but it's, I think it's realistically unlikely, unless of course the your DM says nothing happens for a month. What do you do?
I cast Planar Binding a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I spend 10,000 gold and get 10 summons that are just here forever. Great.
Right.
If you have a 10-day downtime, being able to be like, great, for my 6th, 7th, and 8th level slots, I just have summons now, can be very powerful. It does have every single gold component problem that we've ever talked about. It's a large chunk of money. If you're casting as a 5th level spell, that's where it's going to be the most taxing, because it's the tier of play where we're not quite in the more common Uncle Pennybags rolling around in giant piles of money levels of Dungeons and Dragonsing. If you are ever at a point where you're like, yeah, we got 300,000 gold pieces, Planar Binding is free. This spell is bonkers. Paired with any of the conjuration magic, because like you just said, we're taking a month off, like in game time. Great. How many 9th level, 8th level, 7th level, 6th level, and 5th level slots do I have? Because now they're all planarly bound to servants that'll last me 6 months, which is ridiculous.
All right. Idea. This is for DMs who've lost control of their game. The players are, they got piles of the Scrooge McDuck money. All right, they're going after the big villain. They got this army of planar allies. They've depleted most of their funds, but they're gonna take this guy down. But the villain was a projected image. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, you're gonna have the players be like, "Oh my god, we've been goozled and we lost 50,000 gold," and they'll be like, "But wait, these still last. We have these on retainer for the next 4 months. Okay, I guess we're all right then to go find it in that time." Right?
Ah,
Like, I just this is the spells that I kind of struggle with, in that it can be powerful. The ways it's powerful tends to be very munchkin-y, and I don't love that for the majority of tables. I don't think, like, if you're ever at a table where one person's really munchkin and the other people aren't, you're gonna get this weird disparity of like, why are we here playing it whenever I make 2 attacks around and do 46 plus 10 damage total, and you have an army of elementals and mephits and demons under your control that we just went into this with because you spent all of our gold on doing the power gaming thing, and you just like one shot the boss in every encounter we ever plowed through. Like, that's where the feels bad start to come out.
and
I
I
don't
also, oh, go ahead.
I just don't see planar binding. If it were like a DM event, like if the players, if you as a DM want to take planar binding and make a quest out of it, I think that's a very cool idea, to be like, there is a loose demon on the loose. We needed to help us. We found a scroll of planar binding that the DM literally gave us to do this quest. So then you can go try and trap it, magic circle it, do all of the little ritual-y things that can feel very much like you're trying to catch an extra planar entity. That can be a fun adventure. That isn't for every single table, and it's, when used in the way it is and like gamed the way it can be, it doesn't feel great to me.
Yeah. Another thing I'm a little iffy about is the look, it's, and it'll depend on the table, but the creature's hostility towards the caster, and it goes back to that same old thing I was talking about in Wish, where like they'll deliberately misinterpret, or letter of the law, your demands or whatever, and then that's if the DM's cool about it, and it like says it misinterprets something, and oh man, as a player you're thinking, oh man, I should have worded that better, my bad. But then if it's like, I want you to go pick up that glass, okay, I pick up the glass and kick you in the balls. That's just sort of stupid thing that I could see happening, that whatever.
I mean, yeah, it definitely runs into the question of, you have to ask, will this, what can it interpret as things it's allowed to do? Can it just like, okay, alongside me going to perform this task for you, I'll cut your head off? Like, is that a valid thing that it can try and work into the common port, like the common text of it? I would say most people would say no. But then you get into those weird middling cases where it's like, it would be cute and cool if it took the words to mean this thing and it slightly changed the outcome, but then like, how far can you stretch that? I don't know. I think that's going to, like, so it won't be a problem whenever it's being metagamed that much, because most creatures you summon aren't hostile towards you as far as like elementals and stuff goes. Those are pretty like agnostic of existence, from my understanding. A lot of the time they're just like entities of things that act very animalistic in a lot of ways. They're, I think, more complex than that in the lore, but I don't know the lore. So from like a lot of perspectives, this is going to not have that problem. But when it does have that problem, oh boy, will it cause hostility. Oh boy, will be some people butthurt and really irritated at each other over how different wordings being interpreted, and be like, that's not exactly what I said. How could you possibly interpret it that way? That's just stupid. Or this spell literally doesn't function because you're just being a jerk about it whenever they're trying to make it not super munchkin-y or whatever. Like, this just is ripe for conflict, ripe for metagaming and power gaming. It frustrates me. And it's got a gold cost attached to it, so people can't, even the people that really want to use it fairly can't sometimes, and that's dumb.
Yeah, I don't know. This is one of those, look, it is powerful enough where I feel like there should be some kind of cost. But like we always say, the gold cost can be arbitrary because the economy of each table is so vastly different.
Yeah, wildly, not even close. The economy of D&D is stupid. It's just dumb. There have been more smart people than me that have done really deep dives onto, like, if wood costs this much all the time everywhere, this society's fucked. Like, I think that's a very enjoyable deep dive to go into. But yeah, at the end of the day, planar binding, it can be powerful. It can also feel unusable depending if you're like restricted by gold costs or if you're not doing the summoner thing. It requiring a magic circle and other things means you have to set up a whole bunch and have to do a lot of research into using it. I don't know. Ultimately, this feels like something that probably should just be in the Dungeon Master's Guide where it belongs.
All right, you got a score?
I think this is a 4 in that when metagamed and power gamed, it can be very powerful, but the durations do limit to like 2 or 3, and 2 or 3 summons for a large scale event are not entirely unmanageable. Whenever you stack it on top of other summoning things, it gets even more ridiculous. But like compared to conjure animals and the other just like base level conjuration effects, for what you have to do, I don't think this is I don't think it's 5 territory, but it is very powerful.
All right, I'm gonna give it a 3, just because I'm pulled in 2 different directions, so right down the middle. That's it.
It might be the first. Is this the first recorded time you've gone lower than me?
No, I don't think so.
It's happened before. Cool.
All right, that was Planar Binding. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Sam, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it, a gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.